Hello everyone, it is Justin aka GigaChadwick here with an online deck profile from a recent video you may have watched, that being my duel in an Omega tournament with RB Sky Striker Orcust video. Now, I get that that video is still in its sort of infancy. It's been a couple of days since that came out, but I feel an explanation is needed as to my decisions on cards in the deck and how this deck runs, because I feel RB was very overlooked considering all the different strong decks that we've got in the time span that it's been out, like Dracotail and Yomi and whatnot. So you focusing on them decks a lot more, but I like a change of pace. I'm one for the quirky decks. It explains my love for Dynamorphia and Gradle. So yeah. Now, anyone who looks at these online tournament things for Omega and understands them may think I actually finished second in this. I didn't. I finished third. This guy finished second, pure K9 by the looks of it. He was against the guy who won, who was on K9 Orcust. It was good to see quite a few Orcust players in this event. I do like Orcust quite a bit, and I like the little engine that you can put into decks like RB. Where you just go like Gearsu into the Garte Eye to search your world crown, as a very nice little sort of full RB line, or just an additional negate with crown. So RB monsters. We'll start with the Power Bunker. We'll go natural order. Power Bunker. So the RB monsters gain effects basically by paying life points if they are linked to an RB link monster. For example, Pile Bunker by paying 1500 life points, which is attack stat, which is the same for every other. So like Cannon has 1200 attack, you pay 1200 life points. Blade is 1400 attack, you pay 1400 life points to do a thing. So Pile Bunker, you destroy it as well as every card in your opponent's field if an attack is declared involving your Brute Blues, which is your Link 3 right here. Bit too far. This is essential for your going second OTK line. Because Brute Blues gains attack equals the original attack of the RB's linked to it, so it's automatically with just a Pile Bunker, a 3k body that can attack twice, and can't be destroyed by battle or card effects. So it is really, really essential that if your opponent's got like one or two instances of card effect destruction protection, that you kind of use your Driller, which is a quick effect pop during the main phase, to get rid of one of them, or Rocket, which is a Assault or Blackout, to get rid of another. And I basically did this sort of thing to all Power Bunker to just smash through an Orcust board and attack for game. You will have seen that on that video with me doing the entire event, because this Omega event where this is from the other video on the channel that I posted a few days back. So Power Bunker, purely realistically for going second. Now, Power Bunker, as well as Cutter, Driller, and Rocket, can inherently special summon themselves if A, your field contains no face-up monsters, or B, all of the face-up monsters you control are RB monsters. So bear that in mind. Blade and Cannon cannot do this. Blade, on summon, is a Foolish of an RB card from deck to grave. So if you really wish to, you can put in like a stage landing to grave for a bit of protection if you haven't been able to access stage landing at all. Or you could send a name to grave that can spec themselves, like Power Bunker, Cutter, Driller, or Rocket, so that if you do summon the Cannon, you can use Cannon's on summon effect to add back from grave, so that you can just spec another body out. Blade, however, on the opponent's main phase specifically, pays 1400 whilst linked to an RB link monster to take control of an opponent's monster until the end phase. However, that monster is destroyed during the end phase. So essentially, it's like a change of heart / Borrowload Dragon in that sense. Cannon's effect pays 1200 to look at your opponent's hand by destroying itself, and then if you wish to, you can special summon one of those monsters out of your opponent's hand to their field with its effects negated. You're naturally going to be looking for like an Iberi with this card, or if you've managed to get this without the necessary searches or draws, you can rip a draw out of their hand, which is very, very nice. Rocket is, as I kind of mentioned before, the blackout of the it's also blackout of the deck. So pops itself and up to 2 cards your opponent controls. You have to target. So I can use this, target a ding. Your opponent's gonna use a material to protect the ding. And maybe the other card that he targeted with this came up against the Fiendsmith Orcust player in that video. Really, really nice. Driller, quick effect pop of a monster during the main phase. This is either player's main phase, which is really nice. And then Cutter is a spell trap negate. By paying 700. Driller, you pay 500. Rocket, 1000. However, there is a difference between some cards over others in terms of the RB monsters. So Pile Bunker, Valken Rocket, and Driller don't have to be destroyed for their effects to fully resolve. You can banish the stage landing to protect them from destruction, and only your opponent's cards will go. Rocket, for example, if you do protect with the stage landing and only your opponent's 2 cards are destroyed, you only deal 1000, because for every card targeted that ended up being destroyed, you deal 500 damage. So Rocket plus 2 others is 1500. So obviously, it's just how many got destroyed. 2, cool, you take 1000 damage. Maybe lowers the amount of damage you need to inflict to end up winning with like a Power Bunker under a blue, say. Bleed, Cannon, and Cutter do need to be destroyed for their effects to fully resolve, so bear that in mind. Orcust line, I kind of touched on this because I am a very big Orcust fan. With Gearsu, you just normal it, link it off into Galatea Eye effect, picture card, search World Crown. You can put some names in the grave to maybe add back off a cannon, or put a stage landing in grave for a bit of protection. Or if you really need to, you can put a 3rd spell in grave for engage to draw you a card. There's a couple of reasons why you'd want to pitch. To grab, obviously, World Crown in itself is a negate of a monster effect for that monster was summoned from the extra deck. But it can just be an extra machine body if you really, really need to. The Sky Striker package of 1 Rose, 2 Cynos. I know some decks play 3 Cynos, but I don't think you really need 3. You're not going to go through all 3. Especially when you've got 3 engage, which you can insert it. Basically, the line is like engage, search Cynos, normal Cynos, spec Rose, Rose into Kagari, add back engage, link 2 into the Valken booster, and then go full RB combo. If you've got 3 spells in grave, you go engage, search what I'm currently using in Jamming Waves, and draw a card. It's a very nice line. It's a line that I've obviously, since I've had the Sky Striker engine, I've been using the entire time. I think it's too good to ignore. Hand traps, 3 Ash, 3 Droll. Droll, absolutely necessary for the deck. It's why you're playing Cross Out. But also, there's a lot of decks in the format that love to add cards from deck to hand, so you kind of want to stop that. Ash, just a generic hand trap. It's been really good for a long while. I don't think this is going to get hit in the CCG as much as some people want it to. I don't think it's going to get hit. I don't see why you'd hit it in a format where Charmies are still legal. But yeah, branded players would rejoice if this card went to like 1 or something. And I really don't want that because I don't like branded. So there you go. Spells, Call by the Grave and Cross Out, they basically serve the same purpose. They are basically intended to stop Droll. Insert Rick and Morty meme. Basically, Droll kills the deck. So anyone who knows how RB works, you'll understand why Droll kills the deck. So Engage searches Cyanos. Funk Dock is a mandatory search on activation. Valkan Booster searches on Link Summon. Brute Blues, not mandatory effect, it's an ignition effect during the main phase. There are plenty of cards in the deck that search. Like Thrust, as another example, can add from deck to hand. If you're going second, you've been drolled, you have to set, which is not ideal. So realistically, you don't want to be going in don't want to be under droll. So yeah, that's mainly why these two are in there. If you can use a Cross Out on something else because droll's not really that bad, then that's very nice and it's flexible that way. Prosp, consistency. It's literally the only reason. There's a set sort of 6 that I usually sort of banish, which is 1 Brute Blues, 1 Valkan Booster, Steel Star Regulator, Barricade Ball Blocker, and then 1 each of Galatea and Clockwork Knight. A lot of RB players, especially the ones that play sort of pure, will be very hesitant to banish any sort of Valkan Booster or Brute Blues from the extra if you're playing something like Prosp. Because, I go through so many of the names that I go through all 3 every single duel. Like, I don't see why any player of RB would have to go through all 3. Like, if you play the deck well enough, you don't need all 3 of each. I initially played the deck consistently with 2 each of Valkan Booster and Brute Blues, and I was completely fine. So I am more comfortable doing it that way, albeit I can understand why some RB players might be like, I don't want to banish any of these. I don't mind banishing Shepherd's Crook going second, because the next phase, Monster Negate, is not really as good going second. So there are pros and cons, but I am very comfortable with it that way. Stage Landing is the most cracked card in the deck. The fact that you can just E-Telly out from deck or extra any RB name that you do not currently control at that time is phenomenal. Basically, you can just go this into Brute Blues, second one into Lambda Cannon, and then just rip Nibiru out of your opponent's hand. If you have Funk Dock already on board, you just spec another name onto the field to replace the Lambda Cannon, which is phenomenal. But this is also protection in the graveyard, as I've kind of alluded to before, with it being able to banish itself from grave to protect an RB from being destroyed by battle or card effect. So if your opponent is just like, I'll just beat over the cutter and then just go main phase 2, nope, you just banish this, you protect the cutter, and you're safe from there. Jamming Waves, my second target. Well, I know it's technically a third target in the rows, but you don't really want to be searching rows. But Jamming Waves, set spell or trap pot, where if you have at least 3 spells in grave, you can also pop a monster non-targeting. I'm trying this out at the moment. There's also Afterburners that I might try out as well. Very interchangeable for your spell target for engage, because you're mandatory going to be trying for Xynos in this deck. But realistically, you can flip between Afterburners, Jamming Waves, and even Widowwanker if you really want to go that far. And then obviously 3 engage, search any of your Sky Striker cards. Now, whilst this doesn't have Sky Striker in its name, it is always treated as a Sky Striker card. So it is a legal search. And then draws you a card if you have at least 3 spells in grave, which is a really nice additional bit if you really need it, but it doesn't come up as often as you might think. Terraforming, we have a very nice field spell in Archetype, so if we can't search it out via the normal routes of our RB cards, we just search it with Terraforming. Thrust, punishing hand traps essentially. I should be playing talents in this, I will admit, but talents is not in there. You're probably going to be searching something along the lines of engage or your stage landing, or even prosp if you really want to dig further. Going first, obviously it's going to be like imperm as your set. You don't want to be setting anything via the spells because you can't use them. Then we go on to Funk Dock. Mandatory on activation to search an RB card. Every time your opponent's monster is destroyed by battle or card effect, you gain 500 life points. And if an RB that is faceable on your field leaves the field due to a card effect, you can spec another RB from the deck, and that can include another copy of the card that ended up going. So if I allowed Pile Bunker to be destroyed with its effect, I can spec another Pile Bunker from deck if I haven't used that effect of Funk Dock yet. Key thing to note that it is mandatory on activation search, and it is the first effect of the card. So if you're under draw, you are not allowed to even activate Funk Dock, which I know I shouldn't be falling victim to, but I did fall victim to it last weekend at locals, where I went stage landing into Brute Blues, and then Blues to search Funk Dark, and then got drawled. And I was like, I have Engage and Thrust in this hand as well, and I had to basically end on like Brute Blues and something else with a set Imperm, and it was not great. Imperm. Just a generic negate. And I love the card. I've always loved the card. I don't think I need to say too much about this. Rivalry, majority of the time you're going to be ending on a board full of machines and only machines. The only non-machines in the deck, to my knowledge, are Rose, Droll, Ash, and I think that is it. So yeah, realistically, you're not going to be ending on a board involving those 3 monsters, and if you do, it's maybe for Rose being your pop-off of next phase, but you shouldn't be having to end on a Rose at all. So Rivalry is a killer against quite a few decks. I know Killer Tune, or Kill Tune as we know it in the TCG, players of that of having to synchro summon with the card that pops a spell trap and having to target this because they do have a number of types in the deck. And this card against a White Forest Centurion player that I played against in that event that you can watch via the YouTube channel, this was the only reason I won, quite frankly. There was no other way I was winning it. It was basically stall with Rivalry until I got to an Imperm to hit the Chaos Angel and then win from there. I feel bad for that guy, but it's why I said in the chat box that Rivalry was basically the only reason I won it, and I'm sorry. I genuinely don't like Floodgates, even though I am a Dynamorphia player, but realistically, if the Floodgate is incredibly generic, like, I know Rivalry is at 1, and it's hard to search, and it's hard to, like, get easily, it should just go, let's be honest. It kills a lot of decks, and the decks that can profit off it, especially if they're meta, are incredibly strong. RB next phase, it's the only counter trap of the deck. It is a monster negate by destroying 1 monster you control, and you gain 2,000 life points, but you can only activate it if you control an RB monster. So this can trigger the Funk Dock to summon another if you pop a RB off of its effect. But it gives you 2k life points back, which is nice because you're paying life points for all of your main deck RB cards. And Funk Dog giving you 500 life points back is also nice, but a full 2k at one go is pretty nice as well. Extra deck, we'll go from this line up to this line, and then we'll go Galaterite, part of the Orcust line. It's mainly good for getting the World Crown, but also it's Reborns from Grave, but then just getting linked off for like a Valkan booster. Realistically, this is what you want to be just getting with Galaterite the entire time, albeit don't forget the Graveyard effect. It's really nice. Clockwork Knight, I'll usually summon it as just a bridge to get into like your Valkan booster, which is your main sort of combo card. But it does have a very nice other use that doesn't come up all the time, but it is pretty nice, and it does come up against the Fiendsmith Orcust player that I played against in that tournament, where I tributed something to bring back Valkan Rocket from Grave. Valkan Rocket wastes the last material on a ding, and then Power Bunker blows up the opponent's board to allow me to attack for game. Because you tribute a machine to bring back a machine with 1,000 or less original attack from Grave. So whilst you can't bring back Blade, Cannon, or your Power Bunkers, you're going to be bringing back like Rocket, Driller, or if you're on the first turn you do it, you can bring back Cutter as well for a spell trap negate. So it is pretty nice like that. Kagari and Shizuku. Now, you could just bring out the argument that you could just play two Shizuku, you could play 2 Kagari, that's what I meant to say. Because you can just continuously add back Engage and whatnot, but the Sky Striker links can only be spec'd once per turn. So if your opponent allows it to resolve, and then hurts you in a way where I've only got like Cyanos to Reborn, Rose from Grave, and then do things from there. You can't just go into another Kagari because you've already summoned a Kagari this turn via Link Summon. So you have to play a different name as well to counter that. So that's why I've gone for Shizuku, because I also have a QCR IRL. 3 Valkan booster. Adds an RB spell on Link Summon, and as an ignition effect during during your main phase, special an RB from hand or grave in defense. However, you are locked for the rest of the turn into machines with an original attack of 1500 or less from the extra deck. Stage landing has that same restriction, albeit it is a for the entire turn restriction instead of just for the rest of the turn. So bear that in mind with Stage Landing, because if you special summon like from the extra deck a non-machine Link, you're not going to be able to activate any Stage Landings. So you can maybe do some lines that involve non-machines from the extra deck if you rely on just a Valkan booster, and you just do that later on in the combo. But I'm a massive fan of Stage Landing, and I can play under the restriction. I know how to play under it and do well with it, so I'm not necessarily fussed on that end. So all my extra deck is machines with 1500 less original attack. However, with that second effect, you can move the Valkan boosters to the main monster zone. Not that you're ever going to see me do that, because there's no reason to. Barricade Board Blocker. This and Steel Star Regulator are 2 cards that I've only really put in because they are machines with an original attack of 1500 or less. However, Barricade Borg serves a bit more of a purpose. I think it's pitch a card to add back one of your continuous or field spells during the end phase of the turn, with Funk Dot being your field spell. And I think it protects face-up spells from being destroyed. Let me just have a little nosy. On Link Summon, discard a card. End phase of the turn, add a continuous or field spell from graveyard to hand. Face-up spells you control can't be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. So, I suppose it gives Funk Dock a bit of protection in that way. Not that I'm too fussed about that. I'm playing 2, so I can just get into a second and then go from there again. Like, I'm not too fussed with the protection side of things. But that serves a bit more of a purpose than the Steel Star Regulator, which is 3 non-links to make and gains original attack. I think it's 100 attack points for every level or rank of a monster you use to summon it. So it's just a beat stick really, and it's just Pross Banish. Brute Blues, ignition effect during the main phase to add an RB card. And if it is linked to an RB monster, it gains 3 separate effects. It can't be destroyed by battle card effects, it can attack twice during each battle phase, and gains the original attack of the RBs that are linked to it. So, like I said before, with the Power Bunker on its own linked to it, it's now a 3k body. You put a blade under it for another 14, and a cutter for another 700. That's what? An extra 21. So that's what, 5100 attack. Can attack twice, can't just drop a battle card effects. Sounds pretty nice to me, especially if you're able to bait out a lot of other things from your opponent. And then Shepherd's Crook gains 500 attack for every other monster that you control. Can set an RB trap from deck or graveyard once per turn during your turn. So you're just going to be setting next phase, potentially continuously. Not that I tend to keep this up too long. And as a quick effect during your opponent's main phase, if you have 3 main deck names in the graveyard, you can target 3, shuffle 2 to the bottom of the deck, and special summon the one that was not put back to the deck. So, say for example you target Blade, Cutter, and Driller. If you know your opponent's got a pretty good spell trap that you want to stop, you're probably going to be putting back Blade and Driller to summon Cutter, and if you use Cutter on the spell trap, you just bring out Blade for a change of heart or a Driller for a quick effect part. Obviously, it's just get out something to put as disruption that leads you into more disruption if you have Funk Dock off mode. So, really nice. And I'm going to show you this guy's list for a minute because you'll know there after the extra deck, there is a side deck. You'll see that after my extra deck, there is no such thing. That's because I did this event purely to look for consistency. So I did not bother with a side deck. I didn't bother with it. And I still managed to get 3-1 in this event somehow. Playing a deck that barely anyone plays, probably. And I really enjoy. It's a deck I've been playing enough now. I've been playing it pretty much since release. Obviously, I've got it in very high rarity now. So, obviously, it's a deck I'm going to be playing for a lot longer. And it's just fun. I know a lot of people might not like playing against like Dynamorphia, which is my pet deck, because Rexstorm floodgates the board. You play the counter traps, like your Sonic for a spell trap negate, Judgment to basically be more of a generic spell trap negate, and a summon negate, Intact as a monster negate, which just protects you from battle damage the entire time for that turn, and whatnot. But at least with this, it kind of shows I can be a bit more expansive in how I can play the game. Like, yes, there is some degeneracy with like rivalry and setting up boards with like next phase and cutter to negate stuff for my opponent, but every deck's gonna have at least 1 or 2 negates on its end board realistically. Either that or at least some form of a floodgate. Like, I played a game this morning against the Monarch player, and as you can probably guess, they didn't have any cards in their extra deck, and you obviously know what that means. Tribute summon the monster, and you have the field spell up, the main. Now, I wasn't prepared for that. I didn't have an imperm, because not only was I under a tribute summon a monster with the field spell, I was also under Majesty's Vanity's Fiend, the one that stops you special summoning. So basically, I was not winning. Game 2, very straightforward, just took him out very quickly by imperming the Majesty's Fiend, which is the one I believe negates monster effects or stops monster effects from being activated. Simple enough. So I know quite well with this deck the lines I need to take. It's rare that I'll be on a day where with this deck I don't know what to do. I know we all have those days where you look at your hand and be like, I should know what I'm doing with it, but I don't do it in the end. Like, I can have an hand of all RB cards with maybe like an imperm and still be able to break through a board or two. But yeah, that is my RB list with Sky Striker Orcust. That got me 3-1 in that Omega event that you can watch on my channel. Would love to know your thoughts on it. My twos, I'm going to bundle it in as one sort of question. What are your thoughts on Drolls and Ashes being hit on the ban list? Because we are due a ban list. It should come out hopefully very soon. I'm kind of waiting on the ban list to see if I really want to push in the upcoming season of events, because I'll be honest, I've not really dueled IRL that much in the last sort of 3 months, and that's kind of rare for me, because even if I've had stages where I've not had that drive to duel at big events, I have still played quite consistently. This has probably been the one spell in my entire pretty much 8 years of playing Yu-Gi-Oh! That I've barely played whatsoever. That's probably down to a mix of work, because obviously in the last couple of months there's been like Christmas periods and I work in retail, so it's like I'm going to be busy quite a lot. But even then, there is still the weekend stuff at other shops that I know that do events. Some of my time could be spent in the morning instead of in the afternoon, so in the afternoon I can do Yu-Gi-Oh! Then there are still times when I can easily play at locals, but I just haven't. Theoretically, if I was to push every locals, like playing every single locals in a week that I know for different shops, I could theoretically play 3 or 4 locals a week. And there was one time, I want to say, was it end of 2024? Where I was doing like 3 or 4 locals every single week. To the point where, you know, the Neuron leaderboard thing that you have for points, and if a person's been dueling quite consistently and they've been getting decent enough results, that they can obviously climb the leaderboard. I was 3rd at one point on that list. I still have the screenshot of me being that high, and I had people at my own locals being like, "Have you seen where you are on this leaderboard?" And I wasn't even getting top 3 or 4 at every single event. It's not one of those where it's dependent on getting like top 2 every single week. But even so, I do plan to push a bit more, especially if the ban list is good. I think one card that absolutely has to go, and I'm hoping it's in someone's deck list here. Please be in someone's deck list here. I know there was a few synchro decks in this event. You're not in that one. You're not in that one. No. But anyways, yeah. The card in question, obviously being Herald of the Arclight. I think that has to be banned at this point. If it isn't banned, I know there's going to be a lot of players that are going to stop playing the game for a bit, because the card is just absolutely correct at the moment, and no one, I don't think, wants it around unless you're a hardcore Yumi Mitsu player that can easily abuse it. However, with that said, back to the original question: do you think Droll and or Ash will be hit in the TCG? Personally, if I was to answer the question, Ash Blossom, absolutely not. In a world where you still have the Charmies at full power and whatnot, I don't see Ash getting hit whatsoever. It'd be so contradictory. Like, you need an out to certain things that people are always using. The vast majority of the time, because they are now quite accessible, people are going to be playing Charmies. You need an out to the Charmies. Ash is the most generic and safest out to it. Like, Droll is a hardcore out because, sure, your opponent can draw 1 card with it, but your opponent's drawn from deck, or added a card from deck to hand, say. Droll. Your opponent can't draw for the Charmies anymore, and you can go full combo anyway. So I do see an argument for Droll. I do see it, as much as I'd like to see it stay in the game. Some people are wanting it banned, some people wanted it just more limited, semi-limited, but I see this card staying at 3. You put it to 1, it's a Saki one-off, just like Shifter. I don't think people like Shifter, so I'd say if you're going to have this card around, keep it at 3. If you're going to hit it, you ban it. Don't put it to 1, don't put it to 2. Putting it to 2 makes it redundant, because you might as well just have it at 3, because whilst it sort of lowers the consistency of seeing it, it is still easily enough accessible, because you're playing multiples of it. If you're playing at 1, it's just a Saki one-off. So it's either a 0 or a 3 for me. Ash, I just don't see it being hit at all. I'd be very surprised in the TCG if this is hit. With that out of the way, I have work in an hour. I will be signing off there. GigaChadwick signing out.